obviously deep diving into all things credentialing today, and Terry, who is our credentialing expert, is joining me to share some amazing details about what you can expect in terms of what's needed, the support you're going to get from us, how you're going to make sure you have everything that you need so that Terry and her team can have all of it sorted for you and support you on that journey. So just before we move on, I think our chat is open. Hello, Mustafa. Please pop in there where you are joining us from in Canada, or maybe you're somewhere else, but you are a Canadian nurse. Please let us know whereabouts in Canada you're from, how cold you are. Make me feel a little bit better about being cold. And yeah, we look forward to chatting with everyone today. We do have our chat open. Please don't wait until questions, sort of question time to put questions in the chat. Please do add them in as we go. And then when we get to question time, Terry and I will do our best to answer everybody's questions. Oh, Mustafa's in Toronto. So yeah, -9. I'm right there with you. Mustafa, I'm a little north of Toronto and it's cold. It's really cold. So okay, I think we can get started with today's webinar if we can please move to the next slide. Amazing. So again, thank you so much for joining us today. I'm going to take a moment to introduce myself and then introduce you to our guest speaker, Terry. Some of you may have seen me in previous webinars, but for those of you joining us for the first time, my name is Siobhan. I am the country manager for Canada at Visa Solutions Healthcare. You can tell from my accent, I'm not born in Canada. I did move here just over 3 years ago. I'm originally from the UK, and I have spent the best part of the last decade working in recruitment and mostly healthcare recruitment. Previously, I was working in short-term recruitment. Now I'm really, really thrilled to be working on long-term solutions for the staffing shortages that our US clients are facing, and finding them fantastic nurses in Canada to fill those needs in a much more long-term fashion. I am joined today by my amazing colleague Terry, who is our endorsement manager. Terry, can you tell everybody a little bit about you and what you do at VSH?
Sure. Thank you, Siobhan. Hi, everyone. Welcome. So happy that you're joining us today. And I'm Terry Johnson, and I am one of the managers for the licensure and credentialing team. I've been working with Visa Solutions for 2.5 years now. Been doing credentialing for about 8 years in the healthcare setting. My team is the endorsement team, and we pretty much work with our nurses post NCLEX. So once you pass NCLEX, you start the what we call the endorsement journey, where we walk you through each of the steps that you need to complete to secure your state license in your state of employment. My role is very important to me. I'm grateful every day that I wake up and do the work that I do. I'm an immigrant. My parents are immigrants, so I understand your journey and your reasons for wanting to immigrate to the United States. So, yeah, happy to have this webinar with you today and answer all your questions.
Amazing. Well, now that everyone's got to know us a little bit better, I'm going to ask to move to the next slide, where I'm going to share some more information about Visa Solutions Healthcare. So again, this may be a repeat if you've joined us for other ones, but Visa Solutions Healthcare is a recruitment, immigration, and relocation agency supporting our clients in the United States to fill their staffing shortages through long-term means. This allows us to connect amazing international talent with their hiring managers while providing unparalleled support and expertise to our registered nurses and who are looking for their dream role in the US as an RN. We have 7 offices worldwide, and we recruit from over 100 countries. And despite all of the added value that our RNs get from working with us, we never charge for our services. I know that sounds too good to be true, but it's not. But Terry, credentialing is a really challenging and complex section of many parts of the process, especially as there can be a lot of personal situations that can change the process. What would you say is your favorite part about your role within Visa Solutions Healthcare?
Yeah, sure. So, honestly, my favorite part is working with the nurses, building that relationship. I've had nurses I've been working with in the past that still keeps me updated on their life in the United States. They share pictures of their children as they're growing and just all the adventures they've had since they've been in the United States. So, working with my nurses, building that relationship, getting to know them and their stories is my absolute favorite part. But also the end goal, getting them credentialed. So, it's a different journey for everyone. You may start at the same place, but it's a different road you take to get to credentials complete, having, document completed, meet your requirements to work in your state of employment. So hitting that milestone, get into that final, yes, I'm document qualified, I can start working, you have everything that you need. That's another part that we get to celebrate as an endorsement specialist, So, yep. Big, big deal for my team when we get that license completed for state of employment and just knowing that you have what you need to, start working in the United States.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's so true. We really do enjoy those wins with the nurses. They are obviously feeling great relief when they, pass different milestones, but we're right there with them. We feel that relief as well for every single one of our nurses. And that's amazing that people still keep in touch with you. That really speaks volumes for the
Yeah,
relationships that you and your team are building with these
photos.
nurses.
Awesome. It is awesome. It is,
Yeah.
great when you can build those relationships and just impacting lives and changing lives. So, yeah, absolutely love what I do.
Amazing. Well, before we get stuck in, I'm going to start with a question. So you will see a question pop up on your screen. Please answer with what you think the correct answer is. So, first question is, who do we think needs to take an English exam? So we all know, obviously, there's different types of English exams, but who do we think actually is required to take one? We'll give everyone a couple of minutes or not minutes, a couple of seconds to answer here. I think that's a question on everyone's mind. Perfect. And it looks like everybody got it correct. So the correct answer is people with an education from a non-English speaking country. So if your original education, maybe you're an internationally trained nurse, or education was done in a country that is not native English speaking, you would need to take that English exam. Again, that's the same for provinces. So obviously we have Quebec, which is a French speaking province. We have New Brunswick, which is of course a dual speaking. So if you did your education in an education institution, it was based in English speaking countries, English speaking provinces, then you would not need to take that. So that's great. Thank you everyone for answering. Okay, so let's move to the next slide. Since this is part of our Canadian webinar series, it seems only fair to touch on the TN visa a little bit. So what is the TN visa? It is a non-immigrant visa, which means obviously it's not a long-term visa. It is valid for 3 years and it's continuously renewable every 3 years for 3-year periods, up to 3-year periods. It is available for qualified Canadian and Mexican citizens. And it does require you to have a sponsor. So a sponsor means an employer that is willing to sponsor your visa. You do need to have one of those before applying. It does allow applicants to bring a married spouse and any children under the age of 21. Big part to note about this is children have access to education through the TN visa, but spouses are not able to work on that visa. The other extra part, like I talk about, there's so much added value with working with VSH, but it doesn't end when you get your TN visa. Our support is ongoing. As Terry mentioned, we do like to keep in touch afterwards, but during probation periods, anything that we can do to help, we're always around. So there's a lot of ongoing support for our TN applicants. It is, like we mentioned, obviously available to Canadian citizens. And it is a really great way to start a nursing career in the States. If you want even more detail on the TN visa and on the TN program in general, there is a huge amount of detail in the first webinar that we did, which you'll find on our YouTube channel. But for now, let's move on to what we're all here to talk about, which is, of course, credentialing. If we can move to the next slide, please. Perfect. So Terry, can you talk to everybody about the English proficiency exam?
Sure, of course. So, like you mentioned, it is required when a nurse is educated in a language other than English. English proficiency language exam is also a visa screen requirement. So it's a must when you know, it's a must for this journey. It is also required for most state boards of nursing when you are applying for licensure by endorsement. So two places that you will need to have that English exam for. Visa Solution does provide an English review course if you need it. We also assist with booking your English exam and paying for that exam. If you're educated in Canada, you will likely not need to take the English exam. But if you were an RN if you were RN, if you sorry, I'm tongue twisting.
Yeah,
If you're
it's
on
it
education,
is a tongue
yeah,
twister.
sorry, my bad. But if you're on education is in a country other than, Canada, and you were not educated in English, you will need to take that exam. My team guides you through the entire process from start to finish, what you will need to do to get that English exam, what English exam you do need. So Board of Nursing, when you need English for Board of Nursing, we usually match your English exam that you take with the Board of Nursing that you're placed because you may want to take IELTS, but that Board of Nursing does not accept IELTS. Bad example, they all accept IELTS. But if you wanted to take PTE, they might only accept IELTS or OET. So we guide you through that process and get you reviewed and prepared for that exam.
Amazing. And it can be so nerve-wracking, the idea of having to do an English exam. I feel like if somebody asked me, and I was educated natively English, and I feel like that would be a real challenge. So knowing that there are courses that we support them with and things like that is a real relief to know that
Yeah.
there it's not just about getting it done, it's about making sure that, the confidence is there as well. I think that's really
Yes,
key.
we do ensure that too. When your review course, we don't provide it. We partner with a company called 9.0 that does a review course, but you do prepare for the exam. You do feel confident going there because you're already, tested and know that you can achieve those benchmark scores that you need to pass the exam.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. I'm sure that brings everyone a huge bit of relief.
Yeah.
So before we move on to screening, I'm going to do a poll. So do you think that VSH pays for the English proficiency exam? Because it isn't free. We know there's a cost associated to it. So I just want to see whether people think that we pay for that exam, whether that cost is for you to pay for. And we'll just give everyone a couple of seconds to answer that one. I feel like maybe people are answering also hopefully as well. Perfect. Okay, everyone got it right. Yes, Visa Solutions Healthcare pays for your English proficiency exam, which is, again, I know it all sounds too good to be true. But, the services are free. We pay for the exam. It's true. We do. So in addition to the people that we partner with, like Terry mentioned, and helping you feel confident and going into that exam, we actually pay for it. So that's always really nice to hear as well. Amazing. Okay, so let's move on to the next slide and talk about visa screening. Perfect. And Terry, can you talk to all of us here about visa screening that our applicants will need to complete for their application?
Sure. So everyone needs a visa screen certificate. It is an immigration requirement. You need it for your U.S. border entry, or if you do in an embassy, you will need to have that visa screen certificate with you to enter. So visa screen is really looking at your education. So they're looking at your initial RN education to make sure that it meets the U.S. standards. They're looking at your license, your original license, to ensure that it's in good standing, no negative marks, it is active. And they're also looking to ensure that you pass the NCLEX exam and you have an English proficiency exam when it's needed. So, yep, those are the four main things that the visa screen look at. We do have to verify your documents. So we do request license verification and transcript verification from your home country. And then we also do the visa screen in English, English proficiency verification as well. Those are the easier of the two, but you do have to send that verification forms to your nursing school, nursing council to have them verified and sent back to the credentialing authority that process visa screen. We have two authorities that we work with or to that performs visa screening, and that's CGFNS and JSA. We for your credentialing specialist or your endorsement specialist will guide you to which one of those services is going to benefit you the most. We'll look at everything that you have and what you need, and we will guide you to whether you're going to complete with JSA or CGFNS.
Amazing. And Terry, do we support applicants with the actual filing of that application? What sort of support do they get in terms of actually
Yes,
filing?
so following the application, so for each agency have their different formats. JSA, you fill out a paper application and you email that into them with payment. JSA, you fill it out, sorry, CGFNS, you fill it out on the line. So we provide guidance a step by step on how to complete the application. We review the application and then we assess with the payment for those applications.
Oh, that's amazing. So it's already been proofed by your team before it's
Yes,
actually sent to them. Okay, that's
all
amazing.
applications before submitting, yes.
Amazing. That's great. And of course, a really, really important step is actually obtaining a nursing license. So let's move to the next slide and talk about endorsement and then how that's achieved. Terry, can you walk us through this, please?
Sure. So endorsement. So the initial license by exam, your NCLEX exam, you retain your first license in the United States in the state for which you took that NCLEX exam, or in Canada, you took NCLEX Canada, then that's your initial exam license by examination. Endorsement is when you took NCLEX for a different jurisdiction and you need to be endorsed to the state that you are working in. All states in the United States require licensure. They each have their own application process that you have to comply with. And yes, and so you have to be endorsed to that state to obtain license. So it's basically transferring your NCLEX to the state that you are employed in. It's not, I don't like using transfer because you're not actually transferring, but you're proving that you passed NCLEX so that they can issue your license in that state.
Amazing. Okay, perfect. And if somebody has done their NCLEX, let's say for Canada, we use that as an example. We have somebody who's done their NCLEX in Canada. Would they have to do it again in the States, or is their NCLEX transferable?
You can only take NCLEX once, whether it's 20 years ago, 5 years ago, 3 months ago, you take NCLEX once. Once you take it and you have that Canadian NCLEX or that New York NCLEX, if you're going to be working in Texas, you need to endorse the Texas Board of Nursing. And that's just proving that endorsement is, yes, you're filling out your application, but you're also proving that you passed NCLEX for another jurisdiction. Yeah.
Amazing. Perfect.
It,
That's always good to
it,
hear that you don't have to do something again.
yeah.
So let's move to the next slide and talk about how that's actually done, how your team do that.
Yes. So there are several things that we need to do when we're endorsing to another state, in addition to completing the online application or paper application for some states. So we do have to apply to the board. They also need a CS report. Most of you will do that for your initial exam. For your initial NCLEX exam, you did a CS report. You'll need to do that again when you're endorsing to your state of employment. You also may need to do background screening, so having your fingerprints taken and sent to the board. You need US license verification. That's verifying that you did pass your NCLEX. And also you will need to do it for whatever country that you obtain your initial license from. Uh, there are other specific state-specific requirements like a jurisprudence exam, continuing education credits. Some require you to verify your English proficiency exam. So a bunch of different requirements. Um, the time frame varies. It depends on whether or not that state board requires a social security number when we can even start that application process. Most states will require you a social security number before we can start the endorsement process. Some do not. When a social is not required, we can start that endorsement process right away while you're working on your visa screen. We can start that application. If we need a CS report, we will request that and just work through those requirements. The team guides you through each of the steps, each of the application, and each of the things that you need to provide. We do provide you a guide, a template, step by step of what it needs to do, and we assist with each of the applications and guide you through the whole process.
Amazing. And it really does sound like it is quite complex. It could even be quite overwhelming. And thankfully, you and your team are there to support our RNs through this entire process and make it so much more straightforward. So I know, like I say, I've said this to you before, I lean on you for expert guidance. I can only imagine how much of a support you and your team are to the registered nurses
Yeah.
in, their journey.
It is a complex process, but that's why we're here. We guide our nurses through each of them, each challenges, and there are challenges. We just figure out how to overcome those challenges and work through them as they come up to get them to the end goal, which is having that license in their state of employment.
Yeah, because we've said this before, we've said this on other webinars, is everybody's journey is so different. We all have our own story, we all have our own things that can change this. So it isn't one size fits all. And I think that your team is fantastic at really working with the nurses for their specific needs, as opposed to, kind of a blanket assumption of what should happen. And I think that is what makes it so much more
So
smooth.
yeah, the
Yeah.
first thing that we do in my department is have a meeting with our nurses. So once they pass NCLEX, or they just come on board, they meet with our team and we go through everything that you have, your credentials, and we literally plan your journey with you so you know what you have to do. And then, we summarize that in an email so you can like go back and look at that email and, we talk several times, meet several times and work through each of the steps, each of the applications that we need to do. So yeah, we make it
Amazing.
so it might seem, complex, challenging, but we're here for you to offer all the support and guidance that you need.
Perfect. Amazing. And before we move to the next slide, I know people might have some questions. We have obviously covered quite a bit now in terms of, English proficiency exams, endorsements, license. So if anybody has, I'm going to open the chat for questions. Please, in our chat box, add any questions you have. I have seen that Nicole has put that she's joined us from, originally New Brunswick, but presently in Atlanta, Georgia. So again, thank you for joining us wherever you are in the world. But please add any questions into our chat that Terry and I may be able to help with. I will obviously give space throughout and at the end for any questions if you're still kind of holding on to them, but feel free to add any questions in the chat. Okay, I can't see any coming in yet, but if I see some coming through, I'll be sure to stop and answer them as best as we can. So let's move on to the next slide. As Canadian nurses, we've already talked about the TN visa, but I want to touch a little bit on our TN program. So the biggest one is obviously being a citizen of Canada or Mexico. That is the first requirement to qualify for our program. You do need to have a valid and unrestricted registered nursing license already. Your education needs to be having a degree or a diploma in nursing from an accredited school. And you need to have at least 2 years of consistent and current bedside experience in your specialty. In terms of references, we do need to be able to obtain at least 3 reference letters or employment certificates. And as Terry mentioned, you need to have already passed your NCLEX exam for our TN visa program because it is a requirement to move ahead and obtain that. And now if we move to the next slide, let's share how this comes from application through to you living and working in the US with your family. I know many people joining us today may have already applied. They might already be partway through this process and just wanting to understand, the next teams that are going to support them. But obviously it starts with application. So your journey with Visa Solutions Healthcare, you can apply online, one of our events. So we have social media applications. So once we receive an application, one of the people in the Canada team will review your application. They will check that you meet the requirements that I just listed on the last slide and make sure that you are eligible for the program. And in order to do that, obviously a resume gives us a lot of detail, but we need to speak with you. So we book you in with an interview with one of our Canada team to actually get to know you, your education, your qualifications, better, understand what you're looking for better. And this obviously helps us to look at what options do we have for you. So once you have been determined as eligible for the program, we will then essentially start looking at pairing you up with a current client need. So if you match with some of our open positions with our clients in the US, we would then submit your VSH resume to that client. And should they wish to interview you, because our model is direct hire, you are hired directly by the healthcare organization in the US, we would then set you up with interview preparation where we simulate an interview with you. We ask you some of the questions they may ask you. And this is just so that you feel more prepared. It's all about confidence. We want to build up your confidence throughout, whether that's, speaking with Terry's team or in an interview prep. It's all about building your confidence up before you would meet with the client. So then you would virtually have an interview with the clients. That could be via Teams or Zoom. And if obviously you're going to ace that interview, we've prepped for it, you're ready for it, you would then have received a job offer. So that's when you've secured a job in the US, is once you've obtained that job offer, which is a huge milestone. And if we move to the next slide, once you obtain that job offer and you sign that job offer, that's when you're going to start working with Terry and the rest of her team and other teams. So of course, as Terry mentioned, you're going to move over to her team for licensing purposes. So endorsement, credentialing, all of those items. And then once you've got your nursing license, you're then going to move to our immigration and relocation teams. Obviously, applying for any kind of visa in any country is very, very complex, but our immigration teams are absolute experts at navigating those applications. Our relocation team are going to help you with everything from finding the right property that you're going to move into, to getting your social security number, renting cars, everything that you need to just arrive in the States and thrive. We want you to thrive when you get there, because you're not just moving to the facility, you're moving to the local area as well. You might be moving family. So after that, as you can see, everyone's very excited at the bottom because they're now living and working in the US. They've reached that dream. They are there. They're working where, they obtained their job offer, which is what everybody wants. So it really is a great it is a complex journey. There's definitely no taking that away from it, but at Visa Solutions Healthcare there are teams of experts at every point of that journey, and they're going to help you with everything that you need to get there and thrive and really enjoy the new life that you've dreamed of in the United States. And I can see here that Mustafa has a question. So placement hours. So can my placement hours and clinicals as nursing students count for my experience? I graduated in December, but do not have much experience as a registered nurse. So in terms of what requires as hours, you do need to have 2 years already behind you to qualify for our clients. So our clients require you to be considered by them for us to be able to present your resume. You need to have secured at least 2 years of experience. In terms of credentialing, Terry, I believe it's also in terms of to get the licenses and stuff, there's a lot of specific need to reach certain hours depending on which state. Is that right?
That is correct. Yes, states will have their own requirements of what you need to have to obtain licensure. Yes.
Yeah, so there's a lot that goes into the hours. What we always say is get 2 years. It doesn't necessarily have to be 2 years in Canada. You may have worked, you might be an internationally trained nurse and you've done hours in different countries. Maybe you did nursing in other countries. Maybe you're a Canadian nurse who did some nursing somewhere else. But we always say to try and get that 2 years. What I would say, Mustafa, is send in your resume regardless, if you haven't already, because everybody's journey is different. And I think that having a direct conversation, where you can ask personal questions and all of that kind of stuff is really important. So I would encourage you to still reach out and let us read your resume, let us give you a personalized response. But to answer generically, I would say you would need to have the 2 years and still be working in your current specialty to be considered. Hopefully that answered your question, but like I say, please do reach out to get a really personal answer to that. Amazing. Okay. Obviously, if anyone has any other questions, please pop them in the chat before we finish. But if there aren't any other questions, I think we can move to the next slide. Amazing. So thank you again for joining us today. Terry and I have really loved talking to you about everything to do with credentialing, everything to do with the TM program. But like I keep saying, I know I keep repeating myself, everybody's journey is unique. So we really do encourage you to reach out, whether you have more questions that you know, didn't get a chance to put in the chat. Maybe you are holding on to those questions because they are really specific to you and your family's needs. Please do reach out and find out how we can support you and your family with your specific needs. The other thing is we're happy to, you know, talk to you about it now and set follow-ups if maybe we need to wait 6, 12, 18 months until experience is obtained. So it's always good to reach out to us at any point to get those answers. Everyone here has likely already sent in a resume, but if you haven't, please head to our website, which is on the screen here. It is obviously the TN visa page. There's a lot more information there about the TN program, but you can apply on that page as well. And if you haven't already heard from the Canadian team, we will be in touch once we receive your application. So we really do look forward to connecting with each of you and helping you with your journey to the US. We do obviously have activity on all of our social medias. Please like and follow us at our socials to stay in the know. But thank you again for joining Terry and I today. We really are looking forward to supporting you all in finding your perfect role as a registered nurse in the US.